Hello, we are talking with Victoria, young philosopher, and Peter, my son. And Peter would like to discuss some questions today. Go ahead.
I want to talk about astrology and astrophysics today.
All right.
I want to talk about the main topic I want to talk about is black holes and what exactly are they and what do we know about them?
All right. Okay. So about 300 years ago, physicists asked the question, what if a mass of the object is so massive, if the object is so massive that the escape velocity from this object would be higher than speed of light, then obviously light would not be able to leave this object. So if you would be looking at this object, you would not see anything. It would be black. That's how the idea of black hole was born. And later on, for a long time, nobody could bring up the real proof that they exist. There was indirect proof, like some stars that were behaving in a certain way that we could have said that they are orbiting something that we cannot see. Also, especially the centers of the galaxy, they might be too massive to contain anything else but the black hole. And the definite proof was obtained recently, especially with these photographs that they got. They got it in, I think, in radio spectrum, but they made it visible for us. And there were some photographs of the supergiant black hole in the center of the galaxy, one of the galaxies. So I attended the conference about the giant black holes in the centers of the active and galaxies in 2006 in Harvard. And I had a lot of conversations with astrophysicists over there. There were two groups present who were studying the orbits of the stars orbiting the center of our galaxy, which is called Sagittarius A with a star. And later on, they got the Nobel Prize for their work. One is German group, and another one was American group. So, anything else you would like to know?
So what do we know exactly about black holes? Do we know anything exactly like how they are formed?
Not much. There are completely different black holes, like the what is called stellar-sized black holes, which are the result of the evolution of the massive stars. The stars more massive than our sun, about 2-3 times more massive. And there are completely different objects that we almost know nothing about. The giant black holes in the center of the galaxies, which are million times heavier than our sun, sometimes billion times heavier. How did they form? What are those objects? We know very little. The same, we know very little about the black holes, but they are not black most of the time because they all have accretion disk. When the matter is falling into the black hole, it's orbiting the black hole for a while, and it speeds up so much that it hits and emits light. And also it ejects some surplus of the matter as a jet coming from the poles of the black hole. So this black hole we call an active black hole. And in the universe we know quasars, quasi-stellar object radio sources, which are actually outshining the whole galaxy. That's the centers of the galaxies, active galactic centers that consuming a lot of matter. And when this matter is fallen into these giant black holes, it shines and we can see it. So that's pretty much what we can know about it.
Do we know how they're formed? Like, is it true that they're formed from supernovas?
The stellar objects, yes, they were formed as a result of the supernova explosion. So, as we know, in the star, we have a thermonuclear reaction of fusion of the lighter elements into the heavier ones, lighter nuclei into the heavier nuclei. It starts with hydrogen, and which is undergoing the fusion into helium and then to heavier and heavier elements. As we know, according to the Einstein, energy equals mass times speed of light squared. There is equivalence between mass and energy. So if the star emits energy as a result of the thermonuclear fusion, it loses mass. And when it loses mass, it changes its gravitational pull and the internal balance between the outer envelope of the star and the inner core. The core becomes less massive, so it is not able to support the pressure of the outer layer, which collapses. It collapses on the star, on the core, and then it bounces back. And that's how we explain how the supernova go off. And supernovas are very potent explosions. Also, at this very moment, as some scientists think, all heavier elements are created because of, in order to create the heavier elements, you need to invest, make an input of the energy. The elements heavier than gold, they require input of an energy in thermonuclear fusion rather than getting outburst of the energy with the lighter elements. So they cannot be created in ordinary star, and they usually are created in this very potent, very strong explosions. There are different outcomes of the supernova explosion. If it's not massive enough, what will be left is the neutron star, very dense object where all the matter is compressed into neutrons. And but if it's even more massive, then it can collapse and create a black hole again. So no light will be able to leave this object. But like we said, normally it consumes the external matter which falls into it and creates the accretion disk. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do we know? Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt
No,
you.
go for it, go for it.
Do we know what's inside the black holes?
No, they say it's supposed to be a singularity, the infinite density, when everything is squeezed in one single point, but they don't really know what happens inside. They say there the known laws of physics broke, and we can't say anything, and we can't get any information out because those restrictions. Stephen Hawking suggested that still black holes can evaporate, and it is deemed as proven now, more or less. How did he find the way to evaporate the black hole? Because in vacuum of space, normally we have virtual particles that appear and disappear naturally. So he said that at the horizon, event horizon, there might be some particles that would appear, and one of the particle would stay with the hole, and another particle would run out. So at that case, slowly but surely, the mass of the black hole will be lost with a very, very long time, and sooner or later, they have to evaporate that way. but I believe it's more theoretical theme rather than something that is the process that can be really estimated.
There has been a new theory, like how you were saying that a particle comes into the black hole and a new one comes out. It has been somewhat disproven, and a new theory has been made. So when an object goes into a infinitely dense object, it deconstructs itself. So for example, if we have a diamond and it goes into the black hole, its chemical like structure will break apart, and all will be left will just be carbon atoms. And the way this happens is it's basically, from what I understand, it's uh, destroys the information of the object to just put it to its most simplest form, which would be just its atoms.
There is a ongoing debate whether the information would be destroyed or not, but for sure it will not be carbon atom anymore. The lighter version of the black hole is a neutron star. Why is it neutron? Because all the electrons are smashed into the protons, forming neutrons. It's the gravity is so high that the matter can exist only in an exotic form of neutrons. Like normally, any atom would consist of the protons and neutrons in the nucleus and electrons, right? But when they are in such conditions of such high pressure, they all form neutrons. So for sure, since the black hole is way more massive object than the neutron star, for sure the carbon will not exist as carbon anymore. For sure not.
Would it just exist as singular protons? Would the atom break apart?
There's nothing can be singular there. Everything is smashed into each other. It's a tremendous pressure that would smash, that atoms cannot exist separately. Some even claim that neutron star acts as one particle. Yeah,
That's one particle.
It's all smashed. Someone say, if someone would tell you they know how neutron star is structured, tell them that they are liars. There are some theories how it is all spaced out. Neutron stars, by the way, they're usually very small in diameter. They might be a couple of tens of kilometers only. Imagine the huge star is collapsing to form such a dense object, right?
This next question is a little off topic from black holes, but I feel like it is a part of it somewhat. How do astronomers determine the age of the universe, and what implications does this have for understanding of time?
Well, again, it depends whom you ask and when you do. I attended another conference in Santa Clara, Cuba, where I met the cosmologists, and I was asking this the same question. Why do they say that universe exists 13.7 billion years? Why would the notion of year be used to the age of the universe? Because year is something is very anthropocentric. That's what we experience as humans living on the planet Earth that rotates around the sun, which is incomparable neither in size nor in time frames, even to the galaxy. Nothing to say about the universe as a whole, right? And they admitted that it's just for the general public. The truth is they base their estimates on the theory of the Big Bang and expanding universe. In the 1920s, since Hubble, American astronomer, has proven that there are other galaxies apart from our own Milky Way. He also found out the spectrum shift, the red shift in most of the galaxies. And this red shift showed that farther the galaxy is, farther away, more redshifted it is, or more redshifted it is, it's more farther away. How it was done, because they found independent ways to measure the distance, not only based on how shifted they are in terms of redshift, because particular stars, they behave in a certain way, and according to their brightness in other galaxies, you can compare how they behave and make some rough estimates. Also, some distances are built on supernovas. And based on all these materials, they estimated that the universe should be about 13.7 billion years old. But recently, when James Webb telescope, which is way more superior in its potency to Hubble Space Telescope, discovered the well-formed galaxies at the very edge of the known universe, they said, yes, we admit that their estimates are wrong, and now they're a little bit undecided whether to give another age for the universe, like double it, or just to abandon altogether the idea of the Big Bang, but there's nothing nothing else to be chosen as a replacement to this theory. So right now, I, as a writer, I try to avoid mentioning of Big Bang, because I always was very suspicious about it, and I'm quite happy that finally something has changed in 100 years about the Big Bang theory. And I try to avoid just mentioning this, because it's probably that in the coming years they will change something, will adopt another theory. They just still didn't decide what they'll do with that. I've written a book, The Uncertain Universe, where I claim that cosmology is not a real science, because in the core of this science, we have to ask unscientific questions, and we do not have the ability to use the scientific method when we are talking about the universe as a whole. I found a scientist who actually was preaching the same idea, high-ranked scientist, George Ellis, and I wrote him and asked him to write a book together. We started to work on the book. I wrote the first chapter I sent to him, and I was very aggressive towards cosmology and science, and he suggested that I go on by myself. Though I asked the permission to use his very large article, The Philosophical Issues in Cosmology, which is about 60 pages long, and most of the scientific argumentation that I used to support the idea that cosmology is not real science, I took from this article. So this book was published quite long ago, maybe in 2008, maybe 7, I don't remember. And yeah, it's sold on Amazon. I got some comments saying, if the author hates scientists so much, why would he write about them?
I have a philosophical question to you.
All right.
So, as a philosopher, I assume, and actually we assume, that philosophy is actually useful for people's minds. Like, every person should somehow should have an interest in philosophy, because that would be really helpful for him in his life. What if we talk about astrology and astrophysics? Is it useful for each person on Earth?
Yeah, I want to correct you, not astrology, but astronomy.
Astronomy, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It is useful as, if you look at any serious philosophical model, starting from Aristotle or before Socrates or after Socrates, they all contain cosmological elements, right? And any understanding of the world should include some explanation, basic explanation. Where did everything come from? What's going to happen to it? And some people lost their lives arguing that there are multiple worlds out there, or that sun is not rotating around Earth, but the Earth is orbiting the sun and stuff. So cosmological argument usually is a serious basis to different philosophical and religious beliefs. So that's how it is connected to how we live and what we do. But what I argue in this book, it shouldn't. It should be separated. If we find out something in outer space, it should not influence our decisions. Whom should we praise and whom should we kill? It is really not connected to this. But understanding that our very physical existence is based on the materials that has been made inside the stars is quite fascinating. Like you, Victoria, you, Peter, me, every single atom that we are consistent of, except hydrogen and some helium, which we don't really include in our body as a noble gas. It has been created in one or another star. We probably were created in one and the same star. And it wasn't our star, it was a previous generation of the stars. And we have been created, all this matter that we consist of was created in the supernova explosion of the star. And this interconnection of us, of our hands and feet and our head to the entirety of the universe is quite fascinating, isn't it? Also, it gives us a perspective. We have a very strong tendency for anthropocentrism, to connect everything to ourselves. So having this humble place in the universe, which becomes more and more humble, even now as we speak, we end up making the conclusion that the universe actually is way bigger than we even thought, and exists way longer than we would even think of. Finds us more humble and more relevant place in the universe. It actually influences our problems here on Earth. If we experience one or another problem, we can think them quite insignificant compared to the greatness of everything, which is incomprehensible and in its vastness, right? So the answer to your question, yes, the intelligent being is supposed to absorb all the most updated knowledge in order to put in perspective his or her views on even current issues. Yes, it should not interfere with our moral decisions. If we find some super black hole, or even if the aliens come and tell us that they invented Jesus Christ just to control our temper, it should not influence the way how we treat each other in a bad way. We need to treat each other at least according to the Immanuel Kant ethic, moral imperative. Do not accept anything that you would not like to make as a common law. Like, do not allow any action against anybody that you would not accept as a possible action towards yourself. Or simply put, don't do to others what you don't want that others would do to you. He was not the inventor of this. We find it in Gospel and most probably in all other previous sources. But it's very important not to let anything influence the basic moral and ethical principles treating each other. All right. But on the other hand, separating ourselves from this very important common knowledge, even though we know that cosmology has tricked us so many times before. Like I met at this Harvard conference, I met one of the authors of the modern cold lambda cold dark matter theory, one of the standard theories in cosmology. And I asked him, Professor, if all previous theories proved to be wrong, what is the chance that yours is right? And the only answer I got was from his wife, who used to be a lawyer of the Congress. She said, his theory is right because it is correct. Yeah.
Well, I don't have any more questions. Victoria, do you want to add anything on?
I can make the discussion more philosophical.
Go on.
Okay, if we talk about how big the university is, but yet we don't have any answers. So basically, all of this cosmology science is based on theories, and just scientists, they suggest some things and they say, okay, maybe it is the way it is, but we are not sure. So is there, like, for me as a usual girl who lives in Russia, for example, I'm not that interested in cosmology and astrology, but I understand the basics, like the university is really, really large, but should I really uh, rely on this knowledge as long as we don't have any answers?
It's not true that we do not have any answers. We know quite a bit about many, many things. And astrophysicists, they base their conclusions entirely on scientific research and proven data that they collect from very expensive equipment and telescopes. And so it's a hard proven data. Yes, we can rely on it more or less. And um, some of the laws are held to be true for quite a while. So we can't say that we really know nothing about it. We do know quite a bit. We can't make sense of all we know, but it's not a good thing not to know things. You need to know things. Otherwise, you will make the false conclusions at the same time when there's way simpler explanations to those conclusions that you can make as a philosopher. Philosopher is someone that brings meanings. They bring meaning to the science. Science is senseless without meaning. And the meaning should be brought in by professionals that are trained to bring meaning. And that's why philosophers should be very well aware of the most advanced findings in areas like neuroscience. Cosmology is, you're right, it's more theoretical, but astrophysics and cosmologists, they base their theories mainly on astrophysics, unless they take it from out nowhere, yeah? So yes, we need to know, we need to understand these basics for sure in order to have more realistic picture of our existence. And as I said, in order to feel ourselves in a more relevant place, what I always find quite disturbing in the philosophical works that philosophers think of human beings as something very important and very advanced and the highest summit of the existence. Yes, we don't know anything more complicated than ourselves, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't put ourselves into perspective and treat ourselves in a way we need to be treated, more humbly. And it's very damaging when you discuss with some philosophers some serious issues and they are completely unaware of the sizes of the universe, of the effects or scientific laws, and they are trying to talk about the existence and the universe and other things. Sometimes they would argue that some things are more basic than they actually are. Like they can attribute divine things to things that actually are the product of our mind. Still, when we would like to answer the question, what is the size? What is the space? What is time? Any very complicated instrument would boil down to our senses. You can have an extra large telescope, but you will check out what pictures it produces by your eyes. And there's no other way how you can make an input of the information into your brain except the organs of our senses. And yeah, so if you ask me, it's very important to know as much as you can and have a very clear picture of what's going on in those areas. And I bump into philosophers that completely ignore those areas. And it's not good.
Okay, I have another question for you. For example, imagine one day some aliens come to us and they say, we created the humanity, we created the earth, we created the universe, and yada yada. So, and some, like, it is proven, somehow it is proven, like, that they are actually the creators of everything that we know. How should we treat them? Like, in the way, like, we need to communicate with them. Should we treat them like gods, or should we just keep living, just knowing that fact?
You see, it's a scale that is very different, but you put it all in one scale. If they created us, it's one thing. If they created universe, it's completely different thing.
Okay, let's say they created us.
Creating us, yes, it's quite probable that we are very similar to the animals that live on Earth, but something is very different about us that differs us from animals anyways. And it's very tempting to think that some alien race has come and picked up the apes and did some manipulations with our brain, with our mind, with our genes, and created us as, for some reason, as a sapient species. And also we feel this inadequacy. We are too much of a beast, too much of an animal. There are some very clear limitations in the work of our minds. It looks like this, but it can be also explained as a natural evolution. If we have evolved naturally that way, we obviously are a very successful species, right? We have protected ourselves from a lot of pressure from the natural selection. We don't die of things that other animals would easily die. We protect ourselves. We have so much advantage because we are quite smart and we have consciousness. So both ways can be true. But yes, if they come and say we messed up with your brain and we have made you humans, well, it's an interesting revelation. It will explain a lot. We will also would like to hear why did they do this and why was it needed. We will not treat them as gods unless they threaten us with extinction or something. This will explain a lot, but there will be a question how you came into existence. You are genuine minds. Did someone messed with your brains, with your animals, where you came from, or how did it come? Like, we will still have this unsolvable questions just pushed farther away from the solution, right? If someone comes and says, I created the universe, this entity would have a hard time to prove, because anything can be deemed as an illusion, hypnosis, some action of the illicit drugs. They can spray us with some alien cocaine or whatever, and we will believe what they say. So it will be very hard to prove to us that what they claim is actually true. The same thing with the God. Even for the God, is quite difficult to prove that he is a true God. Yeah, and also my very destructive question, how a God would be possibly able to prove to himself that he's really God and not living in his own illusion, which I usually get the answer that his ways is not our ways and his conscience is quite different from ours. That's okay. Any beings are incomparable to, not even to the universe as a whole. They're incomparable to the galaxy. Galaxy, you need to understand this scale. Galaxy contains billions of stars, and the size of our galaxy, it takes 100 light years, 100,000 light years to come across from one end to another. So the light that goes with the speed of 300,000 kilometers per second takes 100,000 years to cross the galaxy. The closest galaxy, the big one, is Andromeda, which is 2.5 million years away from us. So this is the sizes. So any creatures of any comparable size and might to anything that can communicate to us cannot create things like that or manipulate things in this size. Nothing to say that the observable universe as we know it right now contains billions of galaxies with these sizes. So it will be very hard for them to prove. But they can try to prove that this all is an illusion. That can be. Because, like we say, we can just dream that we know something about the universe. Or we can be fooled, like we are getting fooled in the video game. When we go somewhere, the picture appears like creating the feeling that the world exists in this virtual reality space, but it doesn't. Actually, as we know, our programs and games, they create the imagery only when we look in this direction, while all other objects, they are just potential, but they are not actually. So the same thing maybe is our reality. Maybe moon is there only when we are looking to the moon. Maybe it's there only when we visit it, and when we don't visit it, so it's not there. It can be, or we just dream about everything altogether. Like anything can be.
That is a really deep. Like
Yeah,
the weight on my shoulder, I can feel it.
And it's interesting that this thing should be known by the scientists because they are too much into their science, thinking that they actually get in the objective truth. And they're coming short of understanding that their truths can be illusions. And what I'm calling everybody to exchange their knowledge and experience from science to philosophy, from philosophy to science. And everybody has to feel their humble place in this tapestry of knowledge, because otherwise they have the tendency to overestimate what they know and the importance of themselves in our human world and the universe itself. The same way as philosophers are ignorant about the knowledge of scientists, the same way they are ignorant of any philosophical implications. And that's the worst, because I talk to both kind of academics on this channel. I have about 16 meetings with philosophers, doctors of philosophy, and more than a dozen interviews with leading scientists in astrophysics, especially, and other areas. And I can feel that they really never speak to each other. They know nothing about what each other is doing, and very, very simplistic pictures of each other. And that is not what we know from the tradition of the great philosophers and great scientists. They all were very interested both in science and philosophy. And in modern times, they're quite separated, which makes it ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
No.
I don't have any more questions. Oh, no, I have one. Okay. Do you believe in astrology? Do you think that our minds can be somehow connected with the position of stars and it can influence our thoughts and behavior?
Well, when you ask me if I believe in it, I wanted to say yes, because I believe anything. Anything can be true and everything can be false. Because I don't believe my own eyes, I don't believe my own ears, I definitely do not believe my own mind. So yes, I believe everything. sometimes there are intuitive connections that people find useful, but they cannot explain. And in many years later, actually the explanation comes and proves that they were right. We don't know. The position of the stars usually is connected to the position of Earth around the sun. Our orbit is not quite circular. Sometimes it's farther away, sometimes it's closer. There's definitely influence of other planets on us. Not very strong, but gravitationally, yes. There is a little pull from Jupiter, even it's very far away. But we know, for example, how the last biggest planet was discovered, Neptune. Neptune is quite far away from the previous one, Uranus. But the scientists were observing the abnormalities in the orbit of Uranus, and they derived there must be a massive body which creates these changes. Moon is definitely having a strong influence on Earth. We have these tides. You need to come to Canada. We have here the highest tides on Earth, 15 meters high, and I was there. It's called Fundy Bay in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, where actually, yes, the water comes that high, and those tides are connected to the gravitational pull from the moon. Yes, we are influenced somehow by cosmos in a large. Is there an influence when we born, right? Will it influence our fate? We don't know. What I know is that humans are quite practical. If something doesn't work, they wouldn't use it. That was my argument as a priest, that if the prayers don't work, or Orthodox faith wouldn't be wrong completely altogether, it would be abandoned long ago. For some reason, people keep using it, so it's probably working. And to be honest, I don't see much difference between my faith and anybody else's faith. If I believe that God has become man, was crucified for our sins, and then we transform bread and wine into his true body and blood, and by eating it, consuming it, we become in one with God. Who am I to tell that people that believe that if the planet, certain planet is in a certain position, it is influencing someone's personal life? I think that I have a law that I have invented many years ago. It's a law of the equality of the illusions, that there is no inequality of the illusions. Any illusion is as true or false as any other. And there is no more potent illusions or less potent illusions. And I don't use astrology. I don't know it, but I do believe that everything that we know is based on faith rather than on reason. Even things that we think are based on reason, they are based on faith. At least on faith in correctness of our senses or our instruments or somehow some else. Also, inability to distinguish between dream and reality tells that we can switch to another kind of dream where astrology will be right, or else. So I wouldn't offend. And that's probably first time when I'm saying that this in that way. Of course, as with all my previous background, I should have said that astrology is pseudo science and is wrong and is demonic and so on and so on. No, there is no preference to any religion. Peter, do you believe in astrology? It's
No.
No?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good boy. Do you, Victoria?
I don't know if I believe in it or not. Like, Sometimes I face really strange
Coincidence.
yeah, coincidences between like what astrologists say and what my life is right now. So I don't really know. That's my question. That's my answer. I'm sorry.
Try to use the phone book for the answers.
The phone book.
Yeah, any random phone book or any random dictionary, open on any page and try to make sense of what it says on a certain line and connect it to what happens to you right now.
Yeah.
And we have this evolutionary ability to make sense of things that doesn't make any sense.
Like the placebo effect, for example.
We can make sense of anything because it was a strong ability to survive. If you make sense of something that can threaten you, you have better chances to survive than someone is unaware and doesn't make. It's making mistakes, thinking that this threatens me, and being extra cautious is more profitable in terms of being able to survive than making mistakes by not being extra cautious. That's why we all are machines that are making sense out of anything that wouldn't make sense anyways. So
and that makes sense.
that makes sense. All right, guys, thank you very much. I enjoyed
Thank you.
it. Bye-bye.